In today's brief khutbah, I'd like to share with you certain pearls of wisdom, some droplets of wisdom, from a handful of ayat of the Quran belonging to Surah Luqman. These are very famous ayat, they are recited often, even they are the subject of khutbah often. So I'm sure you are familiar with them already. But there are certain subtle beauties and certain aspects of Quran's wisdom that get overlooked in these profound ayat that I'd like to highlight before you, inshallah. Allah Azza wa Jalla begins by saying, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةِ. It is no doubt that already we have granted Luqman wisdom. From the very beginning we learned Allah Azza wa Jalla did not just tell us that Luqman was wise. He didn't just say that he was wise. Allah began by saying he is the one who gave Luqman wisdom. The passage begins with a favor that Allah attributes to himself. Allah is the one who gave wisdom to Luqman. From this already we learn a lesson. Wisdom, knowledge, these scholarships, these sorts of things, they are not the dominion of any person. When we praise someone for their knowledge, when we praise someone for their wisdom, this is actually incorrectly directed at them, because Allah Azza wa Jalla is letting us know that that wisdom that any person has, any good knowledge that a person has, from whatever ounce of it that they have, it is from Allah Azza wa Jalla Himself. They get no credit for it. The credit, the hamd goes to Allah Azza wa Jalla. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةِ. The second thing here is Allah Azza wa Jalla did not just say al-ilm, knowledge. He said hikmah, which is commonly translated wisdom. So a brief, simplified distinction between knowledge and wisdom is important. You should know what the difference is between having knowledge and having wisdom. At the very basic level. This is a long discussion, but to simplify the matter, just because you have knowledge is no guarantee that you have wisdom. They're not the same thing. You need knowledge to have wisdom, but just because you have knowledge is no guarantee that you have wisdom. In a simple definition, wisdom would be that you have good knowledge, beneficial knowledge, and then you act upon that beneficial knowledge to benefit yourself and to benefit others. In other words, if you have really good knowledge but you don't act on it, that's not very wise. I mean, think of a business example. Somebody tells you a really good job opportunity or a really good business venture. You know about it, you're convinced of it, but you don't do anything about it. It's not very wise of you not to take advantage. Wisdom would be you get the beneficial knowledge and you act upon the beneficial knowledge. You learn, even as a child, the child learns that fire burns. Now he has the knowledge. Wisdom would be not to touch the fire. So not just having knowledge, but acting upon that knowledge. Taking advantage of that knowledge. That is wisdom. That is wisdom. So a lot of times we attribute wisdom and make it the same as knowledge, but actually they're two different things. And one is a subset of the other. Wisdom is higher, wisdom is the whole thing, and knowledge is a piece of it. Knowledge, and then with it the action. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, He tells us about Luqman that He had granted him wisdom, which tells us that there were two things that were already in the character of Luqman radiallahu anhu. The two things are that he was knowledgeable, and at the same time he acted upon that knowledge. He acted upon that knowledge. And it is because of this introduction that the next part of the ayat makes profound sense. SubhanAllah, the accuracy and the precision, and just the beauty of the words of Allah Azza wa Jalla. What is the manifestation of that wisdom? Allah could have told us the wisdom is that shukr belongs to Allah. In shukru illa lillah. Ashukru lillah. This is not how Allah phrases it. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, anishkur lillah. That you be grateful to Allah. In English we call this the imperative, the command. Be grateful to Allah. Because if we just had knowledge, knowledge is great. We should make gratitude to Allah. Or gratitude belongs to Allah. Thanks belongs to Allah. That's knowledge. But how does that knowledge turn into wisdom? When you actually thank Allah, when you obey. When you take that knowledge and turn it into action. Which is why Allah Azza wa Jalla phrases it in a form that demands action. And ishkur lillah, be grateful to Allah. You have to pause here a little bit and understand some things about gratitude. Some brief things about gratitude. This is an endless subject. But at the very least, gratitude can be sincere and insincere. Gratitude could be lip service, and it could be something more. When Allah Azza wa Jalla commands, as part of the ultimate form of wisdom, to be grateful to Allah Azza wa Jalla, it should not be understood simply as reduced to lip service. It is something that is felt in the heart. When you thank someone by the lips, and when you thank someone from the bottom of your heart, there's a difference. There's a difference. You could say thank you and not mean it. You could say thanks even sarcastically. Right? Thanks a lot. That's how we speak now sometimes. But when you mean to say thank you, and when you mean to thank someone and show gratitude to someone from the bottom of your heart, now that's the gratitude that is being spoken of here. Be sincerely, truly, genuinely grateful to Allah. This is actually very important because this subject of gratitude, in our scholarly tradition, it is tied with another subject of as-sabr, patience, perseverance. Shukr and sabr, they're tied together. The question arises, why are they together all the time? Even in this passage, we find a few ayat later on, there's mention of sabr. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. Have sabr over whatever falls upon you. So shukr and sabr, gratitude and patience, they go hand in hand. And I want to simplify this subject for you, inshallah ta'ala, and for myself as a reminder. What is the basic relationship between them? You know, you go to your kitchen, you open the fridge, and there's all these kinds of drinks. Now you wanted orange juice, there are all these different kinds of juice and soda, the only thing missing is orange juice. That's what you want. At that moment you can say, oh man, we're out of orange juice. You just displayed a lack of patience. You didn't have patience. And if you had real patience, then instead of complaining about what you don't have, you would be grateful for what you do have. For what you do have. So when you don't have patience, then you don't have gratitude. They're very simply connected together. It is because of this in a lot of married relationships. When you say how you think of your wife or you think of your husband, you can think of all the things that they do wrong. All the things that test your patience. But if you were a true believer and you understood the wisdom Allah is teaching here, what do you think of first? All the things that your spouse does for you that you should be grateful to Allah for, what a blessing they are. What Shaitan wants from us is to think of all the things we should be ungrateful for, complain about, lose patience over. So we need sabr. And once we have sabr, we can truly have shukr. These are two things that go hand in hand. Anishkur lillah. Be grateful to Allah. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla gives a profound axiom, a universal principle. وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ. And whoever is to show gratitude, فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ. Then he's grateful only for himself. He's only seeking to benefit himself. You know, when I thank someone, I do it for them. Because it's rude not to thank someone that does you a favor. You have a flat tire, and somebody helps you fix it, the least you can do is say thank you. Now that thank you is supposed to be, this is the least I can do for you. Or here's a thank you, $20 or something. It's an expression of gratitude. It's an expression of gratitude. But Allah Azza wa Jalla says this expression that is directed at someone else, actually, even in Allah's case alone, it is directed back at you. When you are grateful, you're actually only grateful for your own self. Because Allah rewards the believer for being grateful to Allah. Nobody else rewards you for being grateful. When you thank someone, they don't reward you. You did such a good thing by thanking me, here's some reward. No, no, no. I deserve that thanks. But Allah Azza wa Jalla, His dominion, we cannot add to it by thanking Him or by not thanking Him. It is already complete. It is already infinite. Allah is in no need of our thanks. So who is in need of thanking Allah? We are. When Allah commanded us to thank Him, it is a favor He did to us. It is a favor He did to us that He taught us to thank Him. SubhanAllah. We thank Him even for that. SubhanAllah. Anishkur lillah. وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرْ لِنَفْسِهِ. Whoever shows gratitude does so for his own self. وَمَنْ كَفَرَ. Now the word kufr, I think all of you know, even if you're not students in the Arabic language, kufr means disbelief. Also in the Arabic language, kufr means denial. Meaning it could imply denial of a favor. Usually the opposite of kufr is iman. Allah mentioned الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and opposite, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Right? These are opposites. In this ayah, the beginning is not talking about وَمَنْ يُؤْمِنْ فَإِنَّمَا يُؤْمِنُ. No, that's not what He says. He said وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ. Whoever shows gratitude. So now Allah has given us two comparisons. One comparison is between iman and kufr. Faith and disbelief. And the other contrast is between gratitude and kufr. Either you are grateful or you are in kufr. You deny the favors of Allah. You're in denial. It's a profound statement. SubhanAllah. The other thing you notice, those of you that speak or understand the Arabic language, يَشْكُرْ فِعْلِ الْمُضَارِعِ. It's the present tense. Whoever shows gratitude. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ لَا وَمَنْ كَفَرَ. Past tense. الْفِعْلِ الْمَاضِي. Whoever disbelieved. So when He spoke of gratitude, He spoke about it in the present tense. When He spoke about disbelief or ingratitude, He spoke about it in the past tense. There's a difference. We were expecting the present tense. But the difference is, and there's a beautiful, beautiful lesson just in that alone. In the Arabic language, the present tense is actually present continuous. Something that happens all the time, continuously. Like our gratitude, it's not something you do one time. You don't just say Alhamdulillah, Ashkurulillah one time. You gotta keep going. Every living moment the believer has is an opportunity to do shukr to Allah. It is something that's supposed to continue. And in the Arabic language, the past tense is something that happens one time. Okay, al-hudud, this is a single incident. And by putting kufr in the past tense, we learned a couple of important lessons. How many times do you have to do kufr before everything else is wiped out? All your other good deeds are gone. Just once. وَمَنْ كَفَرَ. You don't have to even waste your time doing it over and over. You do it once, everything else is wiped away. SubhanAllah. And also we've learned from this a lesson that your kufr should become a thing of the past. It shouldn't be, your denial of Allah's favors is not something that should continue. So what we're learning here is the big picture is there's iman and there's disbelief. But there's the more subtle, the sensitive understanding that the believer has, that this disbelief can take very subtle forms. And one of its subtle, undetected forms is I am not grateful to Allah's favors. I don't recognize from the bottom of my heart the favors Allah has done for me, this kufran and ni'mah. Denial of Allah's favors, denial of the ease Allah has given to us in our lives. So the first ayah, وَمَنْ كَفَرَ. Now, when Allah spoke of gratitude, He said, وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ. Whoever thanks for who? Himself. But when Allah spoke of kufr, He didn't say whoever does kufr harms himself. Allah Azza wa Jalla actually said, وَمَنْ كَفَرَ. Whoever disbelieved, whoever wasn't grateful, didn't show gratitude, then this person's mention has been discontinued. Allah doesn't even mention him anymore. Allah mentions Himself, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. Allah Azza wa Jalla is ghani. He is free of need. He has riches and treasures beyond, nobody can fulfill His needs. Allah Azza wa Jalla is beyond the needs. And Hamid, He is self-praised. In and of Himself, in His existence, He is praised. Constantly praised. And by the way, Hamid is a more powerful word than mashkur. That He is thanked. Allah said Hamid. So your shukr is it doesn't even come close to Allah's hamd. Hamd is even more powerful. Allah is in no need of your hamd or your shukr. You are in need of it. You need to make shukr to come to Allah Azza wa Jalla. So Allah makes the person who does kufr forgotten. فَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. That day you will be forgotten. You will be forgotten. This person is being not even mentioned anymore, which is an indication that Allah Azza wa Jalla has forgotten about him. Because what did he do? He forgot to thank Allah Azza wa Jalla. وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. One of the most profound aspects of the wisdom in these ayat is what is coming next. Allah Azza wa Jalla speaks of Luqman talking to his son. You've heard this many times. وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ. When Luqman said to his son, وَهُوَ يَعِدُهُ, while he was advising him. Now before we go any further, the first thing we learned about hikmah, about wisdom, is that you should be grateful to who? Allah Azza wa Jalla. You should be grateful to Allah. Now, a lot of times in our communities, parents have problems with their kids. They go to the imam and say, my child, he doesn't listen to me. I told him the ayah, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. He still doesn't listen to me. I told him the hadith about the mother, and I told him or heard the hadith about the father and respecting them in the ayat of Quran, and they don't show me any respect. You see, the advice that the parent gives to the child, is not selfish advice. If your only advice to your child is listen to me, and respect me because Allah says so, then you haven't figured out the right priorities yet. Father, when he's advising his son, he could be advising him of a lot of things, but the first thing he takes care of is not his own rights, but whose rights? The rights of Allah. Ya bunayya, la tushrik billah. My son, don't do shirk with Allah. He didn't say anything about himself. He said something about Allah Azza wa Jalla. Don't do that crime. Don't do that crime of shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By the way, another little interesting comparison here. The previous ayah spoke of kufr, and the next ayah speaks of shirk. He didn't say la takfur billah. Don't do kufr with Allah. He said don't do shirk with Allah. And the subtle difference between these two is very powerful. In the previous ayah, we learned of the one who doesn't thank Allah. And here we are learning of the one who thanks other than Allah. He does shirk. He thanks Allah maybe, but thanks others. Gives credit to others too. It's a form of shirk. That credit goes to other than Allah Azza wa Jalla. The hamd belongs to Allah. Lillahi al-hamd. Hamd only belongs to Allah. Praise and gratitude only belong to Allah exclusively. And then secondarily, the others through Him. So Allah Azza wa Jalla teaches us that the Quran is teaching His Son. The gem I didn't want to miss for you is the very next ayah. Now listen to this carefully. The next ayah speaks about Allah teaching us the rights of the parents. Allah is teaching us the rights of the parents. The parent was teaching the child the rights of Allah. And then Allah is teaching the slave the rights of the parent. You as a parent take care of the rights of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Allah comes to your aid and takes care of your rights. SubhanAllah. Allah speaks of the rights of the parents. The parent doesn't. Allah Azza wa Jalla. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَيْنِ. But before we get into that ayah, some very subtle things that are also in this ayah of advice that Luqman gave to his son. Allah Azza wa Jalla could have just told us when Luqman said to his son. He said to him, don't do shirk. That's it. Allah said, وَهُوَ يَعِدُهُ. Not just وَيَعِدُهُ, وَهُوَ يَعِدُهُ. This is important. This tells us a few things. The first thing it tells us is the tone, the mannerism, in which Allah's, the slave of Allah spoke to his son. The tone he used to speak to his son. He was in an advising tone. Those of you that are parents of teenagers especially, I know teenagers can boil your blood. I was a teenager at one point and I know what I did for my parents. The kind of frustrations we cause. So it's very natural for you to yell at them when they come. Why were you so late? Why are you not listening? Did you go to prayer? Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do your homework? Why are you always hanging out with your friends? Who are you talking to on the cell phone? You're constantly yelling at them. You're constantly yelling at them. But now, what I want to share with you is this wisdom Luqman had. If you want to affect the behavior of your child, the tone in which you speak to them has to be one of advice. One of, friendship. Soft tone. وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ. And even then he says, Ya bunayya, oh my beloved son. Oh my beloved son. No name calling. No insults being hurled at the child. Especially in our times, kids, they learn to inflate their ego, because that's the culture in high school. The bigger ego you have, the cooler you are. The funnier walk you have down the hallway, and the more foul language you use, and the more obsessed you are with your own self, and the kind of sneakers you wear, or brand name clothes you wear, that's all, it's your ego. So in this culture of inflated egos, when the parent yells at the child gets even more inflated in their ego, and walks and storms out, and you wonder why that happened. You have to take a soft tone. Ya bunayya, la tushrik billah, inna shirka la zulmun azim. In the couple of minutes that I have left, I wanted to share with you some lessons from this statement. Allah Azza wa Jalla tells His Son not to do shirk with Allah. And the most essential, fundamental lesson here is, all of us are in lots of relationships. I have a relationship with my wife, with my children, with my neighbor, with my brother, my sister, my parents, my elders, fellow Muslims, non-Muslims. I'm in a bunch of relationships, right? But first and foremost, there is one primary, predominant relationship that needs to be fixed. And if that relationship is fixed, all your other relationships will be fixed. And when that one relationship is missing, all of your other relationships will have problems. They will all have problems. If your child, for example, had a correct relationship with Allah Azza wa Jalla, one of gratitude to Allah, then they would be obedient to you, subservient to you, respectful to you. Not for your sake, but for whose sake? Allah's sake. You would be good to your wife, and the wife would be good to the husband, not for each other's sake, but for whose sake? Allah's sake. So the first relationship to sort out, the first relationship to fix in our lives is the relationship we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once that is in order, everything else comes into order. And when you find that your relationships in your family and your friends, they are not in order, they're problems, then you can tell the source of that problem is what? The relationship you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the ultimate wisdom that is being taught to us here. And then finally, and I want to take the last 5 minutes before we break for salah, inshallah ta'ala, just on this one thing. Allah taught Luqman wisdom. This wisdom is not to do shirk with Allah and to be grateful to Allah Azza wa Jalla. He transfers it down to his kids. He tells his son not to do the same. Saves him from shirk. But then Allah Azza wa Jal, before continuing with the advice, stops and ensures that we learn about the rights of the parents. He ensures that we learn about the rights of the parents. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ. We gave the human being a will, a legacy, important advice, injunction, in regards to both his parents. Walidayhi, both his parents. In Arabic, there are two words for father, at least. Walid and ab. Two words for mother, walida and The ayah begins with walidayhi. But hamalathu walidatuhu, no. Hamalathu ummuhu. The wording changes. Walid in Arabic, or walidah, is the physical father. The biological parents. Walidayhi. In our culture, the culture we live in today, there's all this, what's in it for me attitude. Meaning you're bad to your parents, the non-Muslim is bad to his parents. And we say, why are you so mean to him? Oh, he didn't used to come to the baseball games. He wasn't there for me. What did he ever do for me? Why should I be good to him when he was no good to me? If he was good to me, I'd be good to him. It's like a business relationship. Allah Azza wa Jalla did not put that condition on us. It is unconditional that we have to be the best to our parents regardless of if they're fair, if they're not fair, if they're nice, and if they're not nice. If they understand you or they don't understand you. If they punish you or they don't punish you. They're good to you and they're not good to you. Doesn't matter what they do to you, not for their sake, but for whose sake? Allah's sake, you have to be the best to them. It is not conditional. It is unconditional. But when Allah spoke of the mother, He said, He didn't say walida, just not the physical, the birth mother, but And literally, it's a word that's above the rank of walida. It means the mother that contributes something towards the child. Like a walid, anybody can be a walid. Anybody who fathers a child is a walid. But he becomes ab, when he takes care of the child and contributes to the upbringing of the child and protects the child and provides for the child. Now as a real father, ab. But for the mother, Allah Azza wa Jalla spoke of her contributions in the ayah. Think about it. Allah spoke of her contributions. She carried him, حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ, burden upon burden. She fed him over the course of 2 years. وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَيْنِ. The ayah begins with two parents. The ayah ends, أَنِشْكُرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيْكَ. Be grateful to me and both your parents. The ayah begins with two parents and ends with two parents. But in the middle of the ayah, how many parents? Just one. The mother. This calls for our attention. Allah Azza wa Jalla spoke of the favors of our mother and did not mention the favors of our father. That is because it's easy for you to remember the favors of your father. But the ultimate favors of your mother, the ones that she did for you and for me, when we were in her belly, when she gave us birth through unbelievable favors of your mother, the ones that she did for you and for me, when we were in her belly, when she gave us birth through unbelievable pains, when she fed us, when she cleaned us, when she clothed us, when she lost her nights of sleep for us, no one else, and asked nothing in return. We don't remember any of that. We don't remember that. All we remember is when we get a little older, Dad, can I have $5? Dad, can I borrow the car? You remember, it's easy to remember the favors of the father, but the favors of the mother, consciously human beings don't remember. So the next time you speak to your mother in a harsh tone, remember what she did for you. There is no way you can ever pay her back. Have some humility. Allah Azza wa Jalla spoke about His favors. One favor, that He granted wisdom. Be grateful to Allah. But He dedicated a long passage, long set of words, just to the favors of who? The mother. Allah reminds us of the favors of our mothers. One of the, He said in the beginning of this khutbah, wisdom is what? That you learn something beneficial and you act upon it. That's wisdom. So be wise at the end of this prayer. Be wise. Call your mother. Thank her. Apologize to her for how you've been. Do something for her. Go visit your mother. Send her a gift. And continue that attitude. Because this is something we have to do as grateful slaves of Allah. If you can't be grateful to your mother, the one you do see, the one you know in this dunya she did you favors, how are you going to be grateful to Allah who is in the ghaib? We don't even see Allah Azza wa Jalla. How are you going to show gratitude to Allah Azza wa Jalla if you can't even show gratitude to your mother and I to mine? So I pray that Allah Azza wa Jalla sincerely makes His grateful slaves to Him, that He gives us the mindset of constant gratitude before Him, and He reconciles the relationships we have with our parents, especially that which we have with our mothers.